Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm hoping those energy levels did seem high, so let's keep the energy in the room. So brief introduction to myself. My name's Paul Wright. I'm now in my 43rd year within this industry. So I started out in textile manufacturing in the UK in 1983 as a textile engineer. So that was a posh name, but the reality was I used to fix sewing machines in factories in 1983. And then moved overseas to Morocco and Portugal. Didn't realise that I was in the first wave of globalisation, but that's what I did. And 43 years later, I'm on this stage, and who would have thought that I'd be here speaking to people like yourselves? So, just a brief introduction. What I want to go through is I go to lots of these conferences, and really, we're talking about the things that we need to do. And there's still things that we need to do, and we need to increase the pace. But we never take time sometimes to celebrate some of the things that we're already doing, or that we could do quite easily. And there's lots of great work going on in Bangladesh. So I'm going to have two guest speakers come on just to kind of share some of the things that we're doing within our supply chain, and maybe some of the solutions that we at PDS have. So I'm the Group ESG Director, so Environmental Social Governance. If I could rewrite my job title again, I think we touched on it before, kind of green humanity, I would put the S before the E, because there is no E without the S. I think that's really important that we remember that. And I've been lucky, I said 43 years, kind of been traveling a big chunk of those years. So I've, PDS source in 22 countries. I've been in all of those countries and more. But I think the reason why I'm here, and I always support Bangladesh, is actually I have a strong affinity to that market. I've been going there for 25 years. I've seen the change. The pace is quite fast compared to other markets. It's transparent, which means it brings its critics, unlike other countries where there's less transparency around the supply chain and things that go on there. But I've seen a huge amount of change since I've been there, and PDS will continue to support Bangladesh in any way that we can. So kind of a bit of a kind of the impact that this sector has within Bangladesh, and actually maybe in some ways if we could do something a little bit different, it would be good to see that actually not that reliance on the apparel sector. It's a big part of what they do, but I'd like to see that jump now into the next sectors as well, as we've seen in other developing countries. But we know we're kind of touching towards over 38 billion in terms of exports, over 4,000 factories. It employs 5 million workers. But a couple of things that I want to touch upon as well before we go there is that we talked about the green in terms of green and environmental, but also the green in terms of the humanity. So LEED certified factories, there's 240. It's the highest concentration of LEED factories anywhere in the world. And of the top 100 LEED certified factories, 62 sit within Bangladesh. And actually, I sat in a lot of those factories, and they're still not figured out how to market that as I think Sanjay, our CEO, said, how do you make this not a cost of compliance or a cost of doing something, but a commercial advantage? And I think that's still a great opportunity for those 240 factories. And there's 500 more factories in the pipeline coming. So this is not a kind of industry that's struggling to cope and adapt. It's adapting, and it's probably taken over most of the key sourcing hubs. And then I talked about the social side, and again there's still work to be done, there's still issues as there is anywhere, but I come back, I think actually Bangladesh is one of the most transparent sourcing countries in the world. If there's something going wrong, you tend to find out about it. Under the umbrella of RSC and Nerapon, there's 1,000 factories sit under that social compliance side. So raising the standards within them, we talked about things like the new challenge around heat exhaustion. These organisations will be pushing that agenda and protecting the workers in those facilities. And these are not easy standards to achieve. And it's really I think it's taken Bangladesh from kind of being one sourcing country to probably, I would say, best in class. And if you look at the product opportunities, it's just amazing. So it's not just about the environment, it is about the S in the ESG, and there's lots of great work going on. So if I kind of bring that to two factories that we own within there, so Good Earth is our first factory, and as you can see, it's LEED certified. It's one of those leading factories, but it was actually the first factory in Bangladesh to be LEED Zero certified, so zero waste coming out of that factory. We've got, as you can see on the photograph, and the pretty PDS. So if you're flying into Dhaka and you see the PDS, that is that factory. We've got solar panels on there, so we're generating about 65% of the energy we use, and we've got a sewage treatment, and we've now got rainwater collection systems going in there, because believe it or not, actually the groundwater in Bangladesh is becoming a problem, and actually it'll lead on to one of the projects that we're sharing in a couple of minutes as well, just to show actually water usage and kind of the stewardship of water is really important in that country. So that's Good Earth. Our second factory is Progress Apparel, and again, it's LEED certified. So we work with 600 factories. I kind of have insight and vision into lots of brands and retailers. So it's important that PDS, when we're supporting our other partner factories, that we lead the way and we kind of talk the talk and walk the walk. We've got an effluent treatment plant within there as well. But I'm going to bring Samir on now just to talk about one of the initiatives that we run with this factory around the Eco Green Plant, and just to share with you what's possible in Bangladesh.
Thank you so much, Paul. Samira Saidi from the Good Fashion Fund. So the Good Fashion Fund is an impact fund based in the Netherlands. We are the first and only impact fund solely concentrating on fashion, with the main focus being the supply. So what we aim to do, of course, is to bring about continuous change, both from the environmental side as well as the social side, in Bangladesh and India for the FAST Fund. So we worked collaboratively with PDS, the factory in Bangladesh, as Paul says. The main idea was, of course, to bring about in-house washing. Previously, the factory was outsourcing its washing. And of course, this had its own challenges where, of course, traceability is a big thing, but also not being aware of the technology that's being used in this factory they're outsourcing from. So this technology is what you see here, where our funding in Dhaka contracted in May of 2023. We provided a debt facility to Progress Apparels, a 5-year tenure, and this investment was used to develop state-of-the-art washing plant, which you see in the diagram. And the best impact that was achieved is because we stand by 5 pillars, of which good water is among them. 84% of the water was saved in this investment, which means in comparison to an industry benchmark, where the benchmark is belly machines. I don't know if most of you are aware of belly machines that are used in some factories. So as compared to belly machines, which was used in the outsourced factory, 84% of water was saved. So just to give you a perspective of when finance is channeled towards the right technologies, then there are really good savings that could be achieved on the environmental side. So we not only stand for the E side, as Paul rightly said, the E is not possible without the S. So good lives is quite important to us as a Good Fashion Fund. And through this investment, we were able to, of course, ensure that there are best practices in health and safety within the factory, but also leading to that is encouraging more supportive facilities to encourage women into leadership. For instance, providing a daycare facility such that the women are more comfortable working in the factories, knowing that their children are well taken care of and they can be encouraged to work towards supervisory roles. Indeed, so our additionality was, of course, offering an innovative collateral finance facility, but as well as having a tailor-made financial instrument where our loan matched the tenure, the right tenure, and the right payback of the investment that we were able to achieve. So this was the first fund. We're in the second round, where we are fundraising for the second fund, GFF2, and we'll have a similar focus as well, but of course now working closely with the brands. So I'm here with my colleagues, Bob and Bernadette and Ingrid, so feel free to have a chat with us to discuss more about the second fund. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think, look, I'm from a production background as well, and the E and the S and the governance, 84% water saving is a huge time saving. Time saving means production, energy saving, all those kind of things. So it's not just about kind of doing things more sustainably, it's actually doing things at a lower cost and reducing that ROI for Progress Apparel's, our factory. I think the other good thing that we've got at PDS is we've got a venture arm as well, and we've kind of committed $50 million worth of capital towards material science innovation, manufacturing processes and solutions, post-consumer waste solutions, transparency and traceability software, and fashion tech enablers, all of which we've invested in. If you want to kind of know more, the team's on the PDS booth, but this investment as well gives us an amazing ecosystem. So when we're kind of working with our brands and retailers, we're not pushing product, we're pushing solutions. And I kind of know what the problems are, I know what the legislation's coming, and we're really fortunate at PDS that we've got this network, and we work with some, actually partner with some amazing VCs as well, and foundations as well. So just to kind of share, actually we've got one of our partner investments here, which is Smartex. So I'm going to ask Max to come up and just share some of the amazing work that they've been doing with their systems in Bangladesh as well. Max?
Thanks, Paul. Oh, that's loud. Hello, everybody. I'm Max Easton, VP of Partnerships at Smartex. So Smartex basically is using AI and cameras to upgrade how inspection is done. And these are some of our proprietary cameras on the left, and you can see we can basically put a whole roll map or give you the PO quality report for anything that's going on in your factory. And Bangladesh, we're in about 12 plus factories now. Yeah, if you go to the next slide, basically the problem we've realized we're solving through doing inspection in a much better objective way is the pain and the cost around material. So if you look at your average t-shirt in any country, but in Bangladesh, for example, you know, fabric does make up the vast majority of the cost, right? Double basically the next one, which is labor. And what we've found through installing our systems in the circular knitting stage, so raw fabric stage for t-shirts and everything else, is when we track that fabric through, fabric that is not inspected by Smartex has a huge amount of defective panels, which leads to basically a ton of waste at the end of the supply chain when fabric has been fully processed, all the impact is into it, and they've actually sometimes then added accessories and everything else for the finished garment. And so this is the waste that we're seeing, and it's basically coming because it's not dealt with at an earlier stage. It's just passed on mostly because the fabric producers are selling by kilo, so their incentive is to ship it, whereas the garment producers are by unit, and they have the consequences. So what we've done is basically a giant A/B test in the supply chain in Bangladesh. We've actually managed to do 3 now, Fakir Fashion, Fakrudin, part of Ermi Group, and GMS. We're all with very well-known branded product. We realize actually we've tracked 60,000 t-shirts from raw fabric all the way to the finished garment. And what we do is we basically partner up with the brand and the supplier to produce all of the raw fabric they need for those t-shirts in the circular knitting machines, their machines with our added cameras in it. And we turn the system off for half the time, and we have the system on for half the time. So we call it Smartex on and off. And then we just track those products, those 2 tons of fabric, through the processing stage, through the finishing stage, cutting, garment, and compare the results, right? Normalizing for anything like process loss in the dye house, which has nothing to do with Smartex, right? You hold that constant. And this was a pilot we did with H&M at the end of last year. And it's amazing, like when you look at the fashion supply chain, rather than in the silos of cut, make, sew, dye house, knitting, yarn, raw material, which is how it's often looked at and you know, investment is put into it in innovation. If you look at it as a system, just by intervening 2 stages earlier, before the dye house, which is 50% of the CO2 emissions in the supply chain, just by stopping defects, because you stop the machine, you detect them while it's being produced, the worker fixes them, and good fabric production continues, you reduce the amount of average material you need per garment, right? So as a vertical facility or garment facility, I can either start ordering less fabric to make the same amount of garments, or I can just produce more garments and take on more orders. And in this case, yeah, we found basically there was a 4 cents difference in the garments that were inspected by Smartex than the ones that weren't. You can see some of the wastage differences there. And that was basically driven by the fact that there was a much higher quality fabric and much less low quality fabric. And most importantly, it was mentioned on the panel before, these factories are the ones making this investment, right? Brands can support with introductions, with pilots, but ultimately they're not currently constructed to make these investments. So this payback period is so crucial to prove. And we've now managed to prove that 3 factories have already shown less than a year payback period, and that is what we hope we can then encourage them to start adopting this technology and benefiting from it. So yeah, very interesting.
Thanks, Max. I mean, one of the things we were looking at the business case a couple of weeks ago is that you can actually run the knitting machines a lot faster. And I think one of the business cases we kind of saw, like, if you scaled it up, you're probably going to get 6% more output as well from the existing knitting machine. So the payback is pretty quick. The quality is, there's so many different benefits through the complete manufacturing process. So that's kind of a really quick whistle-stop tour. I really wanted to kind of, rather than focused on the things that are wrong, actually just share with you a couple of things that are going on in Bangladesh, the good work that's going on. It's not perfect, it's transparent, it's progressing at speed. It's a great place to do business, friendly people as well, and I'm just hoping I'm around in another 40 years to see the changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.